Hi again then guys, and welcome back to the world of Project Gotham for another vehicle review. And it actually surprised me when I checked the vehicles that I'd already done for Project Gotham 4 that I'd only done one bike review. And of course you won't get any kind of prize for guessing which bike it was that I spoke about, because of course it's the only racing game that I'm aware of to actually feature my favourite vehicle of all time, the Y2K. This one though seems like a pretty logical next bike to feature, given that not only is it very quick, but also it's another occasion where it's a bike that you do not actually see in that many racing games. And that is kind of ironic, because in many ways this is a motorbike which deserves, I would argue, to have at least as much recognition as something like a Suzuki Hayabusa or a Honda Super Blackbird before that, because this is exactly that kind of bike. It's a larger, heavier, more continent-crushing straight-line speed machine, which isn't designed to be the lightest or the nimblest through corners. It's just the kind of bike that you could destroy from east to west coast of America in a couple of days comfortably. It's not going to set the quickest lap time, which kind of works against it considering that it's a racing game, but at the same time, just like the Y2K, that overwhelming straight line performance could well make up for any cornering ability which it might not have. Or at least that's the way it should be, because unfortunately, as much as I love this bike, which is known by a couple of different names technically, some people refer to it as the ZX-14R, technically in Europe we call it the ZZ-R1400, which doesn't sound quite as cool, but either way, this bike is straight up bad. I'm sad to say in this game, and you can even see right at the start of this video, before I'm even riding it, the computer itself, the AI, crashes the bike before you even begin riding it. Just on the autopilot mode, it immediately flips over the handlebars on the first corner. That's kind of worrying when you haven't even begun riding the bike yourself yet. Now in real life, as I said, this is an absolute speed machine. It's a monster in a straight line. It is big, it is heavy, but it's also stable, it's smooth, and it's overwhelmingly fast. Easily in excess of 190, even with the gentleman's agreement speed limiter that a lot of Japanese bikes have. You can easily go over 200 with even minimal tuning, just remove the limiter for instance. It's a beast of a bike. And on the surface of things, you would safely assume that in this game, just like in Midnight Club LA, where this bike also features, that they seem to give it a lot of respect. The specs, for instance, are very strong across the board. It's a Category A vehicle, which is the highest in the game. That puts it up against stuff like Caparo T1s and Ducati 999Rs and Aston Martin DBR9s. Literally the highest competition you can get in the game. However, it simply is not up to the task, put simply, because they give this thing a 10 out of 10 for acceleration. That's fair enough, it is a superbike at the end of the day, so that's not too surprising. They give it, as far as braking, an 8 out of 10. Now, immediately I have to disagree with that. This is like a 7 at best, and although that's not much of a difference, it is a difference nonetheless. This can slow down quickly, but the thing about this bike is, in bike terms, it's kind of like trying to take an SLR McLaren, or even more so a Bentley Continental GT, around a very tight technical circuit. It can be done, but it's hardly as nimble as something like a Lotus or a TVR. So to even intimate that the brakes are that good is, I would say, simply inaccurate. Technically it does slow the bike down, but in a similar way to how the SLR McLaren has often been contradicted in real life for having a lack of brake feel, wherein the car does slow down but it doesn't feel like it's slowing down as quickly as it actually is, which can be very off-putting when you're trying to do a fast lap. I would say that this bike suffers from that as well. Now, the biggest single downside that this bike has is unquestionably the handling. It's not bad in real life, because in real life, as I said, it spends the majority of its time going very fast in a straight line. This game has very little time and very little use for a vehicle that is just good in a straight line. You may as well be driving a dragster at that point, because there are vehicles that are better in a straight line, the Callaway Sledgehammer, the Y2K Turbine Superbike, but even then the handling is good enough. Even the Y2K can take a corner if it has to. This actually feels worse than that does, because at least the Y2K can get a little bit squirrely, but it's a challenging approach to a bike for sure, but it can take a corner. With this ZZ-R, on the other hand, you have to go so slowly to take a corner well, and the reason why is there's so much understeer. This bike has chronically heavy steering, and unfortunately it really is the death of it when it comes to laps. Now, moving on through the specs that they give it an 8 as far as grip. I guess that's technically true, because if anything it has too much. As far as drifting, they give it a 5. I mean, sure, I guess. It's a motorbike, so who really cares how well it drifts? And finally, another inaccuracy as far as I'm concerned, they give it a straight up 9 out of 10 for top speed. And although in real life 190 is fantastic, that is not an A-level speed in this game. There are plenty of vehicles that can destroy this in a straight line, not just for top speed, but for acceleration as well. And to say that the speeds that I'm doing in this video, up around 190 for instance, and that's with the rider ducking down as well, to say that that's a 9 out of 10 is, it's generous, but it's not deserved. And that's coming from somebody who does love Kawasaki, and I actually do love the ZZ-R1400 in real life. I think it's a fantastic bike, it's great value, especially for a used one, you get so much power for the money. But in the game, it's just not the kind of bike that Project Gotham needs to have. You would be far better off, far better off to have a ZX-10R. It's as simple as that. It would be so much better, so much faster through corners. The acceleration is more responsive because of having a 1 litre engine rather than a 1400. This bike simply does not belong in this game. In Midnight Club LA, it's fine, because there are plenty of roads where you can use that kind of power. Lots of straight lines, in other words. In this game, there isn't. There are very few tracks apart from here at Brooklyn that actually allow you to reach top speed. So ultimately, my thoughts on this one are mixed, because as a bike, and especially in real life, I love this thing. I love the Kawasaki ZX-14. In this particular game, it feels heavy, it feels bad through corners, and ultimately it feels very much out of place. I would not recommend using this bike that much, if at all, in Project Gotham, and if you're looking for a straight line speed machine of a motorbike, well, clearly just go for a Y2K, because that is a hell of a lot faster than this in a straight line, and ironically, it can take a corner better as well, plus turbine. But overall, that's it for this review. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.